Good morning, Mr. President, and good morning, members. May we all pray. Guide, we beseech the Almighty God, that we members of the Senate may wisely deliberate for the good of this country and for the glory of thy holy name. Please join me in the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
This session of the Senate now commences. Well, I'll make it on the adjournment. I don't really have any.
Item 3, oath of allegiance or formation of a new senator. Item 4, confirmation of minutes.
Mr. President, I beg to move that the minutes of the proceedings of the sitting of the Senate held at the Grenada Trade Center on Friday the 24th of November 2017 be taken as read.
Honorable members, the question is that the minutes of the proceedings of the sitting of the Senate held at the Grenada Trade Center on Friday 24th November 2017 be taken as read. All those who have that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do indeed have it.
Mr. President, I beg to move that the minutes of the proceedings of the sitting of the Senate held at the Grenada Trade Center on Friday the 24th of November 2017 be confirmed.
Honorable members, the question is that the minutes of the proceedings of the sitting of the Senate held at the Grenada Trade Center on Friday the 24th November 2017 be confirmed. All those who are of that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it.
Item 5, messages from the Governor General. Item 6, announcements by Mr. President. Item 7, ministerial statements. Item 8, presentation of papers and reports from select committees. Item 9, petitions. Item 10, government notices. Item 11, unofficial notices.
Sorry. Your light was... Okay. Senator Vincent. Well, maybe under this item I should inform members that Senator the Honorable Dr. George Vincent has indicated that he's unable to attend the Senate today. I have no other information on any other senator. Neither does the clerk, to the best of my knowledge.
Item 12, questions.
Well, there are questions here in the name of Senator Clouden. Yes,
Thank you,
Lewis.
Mr. President. I have been asked by Honorable Keith Clouden to take carriage of his questions, and that is in keeping with Section 19.3 of the Standing Orders, to carry it in his name.
President, with regard to those questions that were received just before the budget debate, the questions have been submitted to the relevant ministries. The ministries, as we can appreciate at this time, have had their hands full both with the budget and with the Christmas period. I'm still awaiting answers on those questions, and I'll be able to provide those at the next available sitting.
Yes, Senator Lewis.
Noted, but just to report for the record's sake that the Senator has expressed through me his concern that these questions are outstanding for a while and that he's a bit concerned that the answers are not forthcoming in a timely manner.
Well, just to say, these questions only came to us. He had questions before which died in the last session. So the questions only just came, in fairness to the leader of government's business. Those questions came just before the budget sitting. Yeah. But Senator Steele, your indication that you would be in a position to answer them at the next sitting?
Yeah,
that's your indication?
No indication, but I know that the ministries have been working on those questions, and not until they're completely compiled will we bring them before the House. But work is being done on them.
Right. So the questions will be carried forward to the next sitting, where hopefully they will be answered at that sitting of the House.
Item 13, personal explanations. Item 14, motions.
Mr. President, I beg to move the following motion standing in my name. Whereas on the gracious address delivered by the Governor-General on the occasion of the ceremonial state opening of the 6th session of the 9th Parliament on Friday the 20th of October 2017 was deferred to a date to be announced, be it resolved that the said address now be debated. Mr. President, I propose to amend that motion to read that the said address be approved. Mr. President, the gracious address is also referred to as the throne speech, which was presented by the Governor-General on the 20th of October. And that gracious address, that throne speech, lays out the principles, philosophies, priorities of government for the period ahead. It also stands as the foundation for the budget and the budget debate that has been presented both in the lower house and this house extensively. So both the content of the throne speech, it has been publicly ventilated, publicly discussed, and through parliamentary procedure in both houses through the budget has been extensively been debated. Whether there are those who agree, do not agree, have different opinions, but it's been well ventilated, and it is customary at this time to now ask for, since there's been so much discussion and debate already around this, that the throne speech now be approved. So I beg to amend the motion to read, be it resolved that the said address be approved.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, first of all, I just want to apologize for my lateness. I want to say, please, Mr. President, that while I understand the contention of the honorable member, I do not believe it is correct to say that it is customary to to now approve the gracious address by the Governor General. It is true that through the budget debate, the issues raised in the gracious address have been debated. And what is normally done is that in light of that debate, the gracious address be now treated as having been debated. There was no issue before us at any stage whether or not this address was approved or not approved. That was never an issue in the debate that took place in the budget. And so I don't think it would be proper to say at this stage that what we are seeking to do is to approve the gracious address. The issue was whether to debate it or not debate it. And I'm prepared to accede to the idea or to the notion that we, in light of the budget debate, the issues raised in the gracious address have been sufficiently aired and ventilated and debated. That is quite different from saying that the gracious address has been approved. And so I would respectfully suggest that the proper course is to say that in this motion that the gracious address be now treated as having been debated.
Senator, but every motion has a destiny. And that destiny is whether the motion is approved or not. You can't leave the motion hanging, to use a religious term, in limbo, as it were. A motion has a destiny. So it's either you approve the motion or you don't. And it's on the basis of that that I believe it is proper, if the House so wishes, to express whether it approves the motion or not. If we were to follow because the issue is not whether the motion is debated or not. As I said, every motion has a destiny. And if it wishes to arrive at that destiny, it affirms the motion. If it wishes not to arrive there, or it seeks to change the particular destiny which is attached to the motion, then that is done in the form of amendments. But you can't leave a motion hanging, because the issue is not so much whether it's debated or not. The issue before us is whether or not the motion is approved. Now, I take your argument that to approve a motion, you must give cause to a debate, because you can't just accept something without looking at it from different corners. But I think what the leader of government's business is saying, since substantially the address contain all the main elements in the debate touching and concerning the Appropriation Act, then in a sense it would be repetitive unless there are things new to go down that road again. So for the efficacy of time, but just let me say, the rules does allow for debate. So it's all up to members. It's really not in my hands. But we have to have we have to make a decision on what has become of the fate of the motion and not what has become of the debate, because the debate concludes, and it concludes if you have a motion pending as to what happens to that motion: approve or not approve, or is the motion withdrawn, or is the motion amended?
May I please, Mr. President? Mr. President, if we look at the motion, I agree with your argument, but the issue starts with the motion itself. What was the issue before the House? The issue before the House was whether or not this motion should be debated, not whether it should be approved. Nowhere, at any stage, did the issue ever come up whether or not the throne speech should be approved. That has never come up. The motion before the House is, should the motion be debated or not debated? And therefore, if that is the motion before the House, the question is, yea or nay, should it be debated or should it not be debated, not whether it should be approved or not approved. So I understand your argument, Mr. President, but respectfully, I could not agree with the argument. But I whatever.
No. But the leader of government's business has offered an amendment to the motion. So what's on the floor now? It's an amendment. I mean, there has not been a seconder of the motion itself. And in a sense, we sort of rabbited the procedure a bit, but I mean, not to the fatal detriment of anyone. So I mean, with the generosity of the season, I've been a little bit generous with the rules. But I'm saying, you are right, that the motion before us is touching and concerning be it resolved that it be debated, but he is amending the resolution to say be it resolved that the motion be approved.
Which motion?
By the leader of government's businesses. It's down on the
No,
other people.
which motion? Be it resolved that
The address
motion
be now
approved.
debated.
Which motion? Be it resolved that the throne speech be approved. Is it the motion of the throne speech? In other words, Mr. President, all I'm saying is this. I'm making 2 points. First, it is not correct to say that it is customary for us to approve the throne speech after the ventilation of the budget. That is simply not the case. Second, it would not be correct to say that the proper course at this stage is to approve the throne speech, because that motion has never been before the House. If he's amending the motion to say that the motion be approved, okay. If he's amending the motion to say that the throne speech be approved, that's different from saying that the motion be approved. The question is, what is it that he's asking the House to approve or not approve?
If I could add some
The
clarification.
issue was the debate. The issue was the debate. The issue was, should we or should we not debate the throne speech? That was the motion. Not whether or not we should approve the throne speech. So I'm taking issue with the contention that what is before us now is to approve the throne speech. If he wishes to make a new motion, I can't stop that, Mr. President. I'm simply saying that it is not correct to represent that what is customarily done at this stage is to approve the throne speech. The matter is in your hands.
Yes.
Mr. President, 2 points. Firstly, in my preamble, I clearly articulated the linking and connection between the throne speech and the budget, which was debated. The throne speech forms the underlying principles of the budget, and there is absolutely no conflict between the two. So first of all, the two have been linked. Secondly, the term customary. Mr. President, we've done this for the last 5 years. It is customary. Every motion that is presented with regard to the gracious address concludes as has just been presented. What I'm hearing, and we actually had, I recall, we had this exact same debate last year. So I enjoy the intellectual element to the discussion. The nuances I can understand, but I believe, Mr. President, we're wasting time right now. We have other matters that we need to move on to, and the proposal to amend to approve is what we did last year. It is what the lower house has done each consecutive year, in each of the years. Please.
Senator Steele, all of this is part of the business of the House. Yes? So to suggest that otherwise, really, all of this, I guess like most of you, there's a nice salt ham being cooked somewhere. But the fact of the matter is, all of this is the business of the House. And if a senator so wishes to ventilate an issue, he has the right under the standing orders to do so, once he does it within the purview of the rules. So that's not an issue at all. In respect of whether it is traditional or not, I have had occasions where I have debated the throne speech. But I think it is accurate to say that for most occasions, so again, I don't know if we want to spend a lot of time trying to refine the technicality. So I think Senator Burke, well, I wouldn't make heavy weather of that, right? I was not here for 5 years consecutively, so I can't speak for the 5 years, and I trust what you are saying to be accurate. So I don't see this as a contentious point, and I don't think we should spend more time on it. Whether or not we do this all the time, it has become traditional. I don't think that's the essence. What is before us is whether or not the resolution is, be it resolved that the said address be now debated. You have offered an amendment which says, be it resolved that the said address be approved. Senator Burke, what is the difficulty with that? You need to help me, please. I'm saying the resolution is that it be resolved by the House that the address, rather than debate it now for the reasons which are given, right? In a sense, it would be superfluous unless there are new issues that would have new issues to be ventilated. What is being suggested by the leader of government's business is that we amend the resolution to read that be it resolved that the said address be approved. What is improper about that amendment? And why, in your opinion,
Mr.
a completely
President.
new motion? Because this is the motion before us. I'm agreeing with you that we are not debating the issue now, right? Well, the issue is down to be debated. That's what the resolution is asking for. But in light of what all of us have agreed, and from distilling from what you're saying, you have no difficulty with that. Why then can't the current motion be amended to the extent simply to say that the gracious address be approved?
Mr. President, I believe that I have clearly articulated my contentions in this matter. Anything further I say would be repeating what I said earlier, including my observation that the member is free to bring any motion before the House. I can't take issue with his motion. He is free to bring any motion before the House. And so if he says he wants to bring that motion and ask that it be approved, I cannot object to him doing so at this stage. He's free to do so.
Okay.
I have offered why I believe that, why I took issue with what he presented to the House. So at this stage, the motion is before the House. I'm not, I think I've offered everything I have to say on the matter, Mr. President. I can't add anything new to what I've said.
Yes. Okay. Senators, my findings are as follows, that the motion can be amended along the lines that you have suggested. And I think that is consistent with some of what Senator Burke is saying. I'm still missing a component part of his reasoning, because if he submits that you can bring any motion, this is a motion in your name, so it's one of those any motions that you can bring. And if he recognizes that the mover of a motion or anyone can amend that motion, which is what you have done, amending your own motion, then I see no reason why the question cannot be put and we can't proceed. So on the basis of that, I therefore direct that you proceed. Someone second the motion, then I'll put the question in respect of, because unless, well, you don't, it's a government motion, so there's really not a need for a seconder. But I'll put the question of the amendment, yes? And I hope that my deduction of the different elements of the argument is clear for everybody to follow. So, honorable members, the question is that the motion standing in the name of the leader of government's business, the Honorable Senator Simon Steele, be amended to read, whereas debate on the gracious address delivered by the Governor General on the occasion of the ceremonial state opening of the 6th session of the 9th Parliament on Friday, 20th October 2017 was deferred to a date to be announced, be it resolved that the said motion be approved. Honorable members, all those who have that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do indeed have it.
Item 15, bills.
Senator Steele.
Mr. President, I beg to introduce for first reading a bill for an act shortly entitled Financial Intelligence Unit Amendment Bill 2017.
An act to amend the Financial Intelligence Unit Act number 14 of 2012, shortly entitled Financial Intelligence Unit Amendment Bill 2017.
Mr. President, I beg to move that the relevant standing order of the Senate be suspended to enable the bill to be taken through all its stages at this sitting.
Honorable members, the question to be considered is that the standing orders be suspended to allow this bill to be taken through all of its stages at this sitting of the House. All those who have that opinion say aye. To the contrary opinion, nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it.
Mr. President, I beg to move the second reading of the bill. Mr.
Honorable members, the question proposed is that the bill be read a second time.
Mr. President, the bill before us, the Financial Intelligence Unit Amendment Bill 2017, seeks to amend 4 specific areas of the Principal Act. The first deals with the clarification of roles, functions, responsibilities of those police officers that are seconded to the unit. The second is establishing the appointment, role, qualifications, disqualifications, and tenure of the position of Deputy Director. There are some clarifications that need to be brought there. The third area is a specific typographical and some numbering errors. And the fourth is a terminology change to bring a specific term in line with other legislation, including the Public Finance Management Act. So, Mr. President, going into the details of it, Clause 2 provides for the insertion of a new subsection 2 to Section 9 of the Principal Act to provide a general power for police officers who are seconded to the FIU to exercise all powers of a police officer. The specific amendment, the specific addition reads as follows: without prejudice to subsection 1, police officers seconded to the unit shall retain all their powers under the Police Act for the purposes of carrying out their duties and functions under this Act or any other act. Mr. President, in the original drafting, it was the intention that those police officers who, within the Royal Grenada Police Force, are assigned certain responsibilities, certain powers, that those powers continue, transfer across when they are seconded to the Financial Intelligence Unit. However, in the drafting of the particular section within the Principal Act, it specifies just some of those functions which the ones that are specified are powers of arrest, search, and seizure alone. So the implication is that the powers of a police officer seconded to the FIU are limited to just those powers. So the introduction of this new section is to make it very clear that all powers of a police officer are afforded to those that are seconded to the unit. And it links it to those powers that are stated within the Police Act, so which states all such authorities, privileges, protections, and advantages, and be liable to all such duties and responsibilities as a police officer duly. It also speaks to whether it is the carrying of firearms, a power that exists with regular police officers, or whether it is erecting, placing barriers across roads, etc., public places. These are powers and duties that are all outlined within the Police Act, and it is for those powers, as I said, to be afforded to those within those police officers seconded to the FI unit. So this qualification means that those officers within the FIU can conduct their functions as an assigned police officer without having to bring in other law enforcement officers from other agencies to carry out those duties. So this amendment brings greater efficiency to the operations of the FIU. Clause 3, Mr. President, is correcting a typographical error. It replaces the word declaration with delegation, and everywhere that is referenced has been amended. Clause 4 provides for the insertion of a new section 14A to the Principal Act to provide for the appointment of a deputy director. Within the Principal Act, deputy director is referenced, the role is provisioned for, as is that of director. However, it goes into details about defining how a director, the qualifications of the director, how the director is appointed, its disqualification, etc. But there is no such reference to the deputy director. So the amendment before us seeks to address that by providing clarification as to how a deputy director is appointed, and it's appointed through the Governor General acting in accordance with the advice of the Public Service Commission, exactly the same as that of the director. It also speaks to the competencies, the qualifications of that deputy, which again mirror that of the director. So it's knowledgeable or experienced in criminal or financial investigations, financial crimes, law, national security, or finance. So the person must have the prerequisite experience and knowledge to conduct that role. Clause 4 also provides for the insertion of the definition of deputy director in all relevant sections throughout the legislation. Section 15 currently provides solely for the disqualification to serve as a director. Therefore, under Section 6 and Section 16 currently provides solely for the removal of the director from that office. Therefore, Section 15, which speaks to disqualification and the treatment of the deputy director, will be identical to that of the director. Therefore, in terms of disqualifications, a deputy director will be disqualified if they're a member of the Senate, the House of Representatives, if they're a declared bankrupt, if they're convicted of any offense involving dishonesty or moral turpitude, or if that person is a director, an officer, or servant of, or has a controlling interest in a financial institution, is a member of a registered political party, or becomes a politically exposed person. So those are the same disqualifying features that apply to that of the director. Section 17 speaks to the removal of a person from office, and that speaks to those disqualification criteria. Clause 5 provides for the insertion of a new subsection 2 to section 16, which speaks to the term of office of the deputy director, which is 5 years, and any reappointment shall be for a period no greater than 5 years. in any single reappointment. So again, mirroring that of the director. And then finally, Mr. President, Clause 6 speaks to the change in term. There's reference in the existing legislation to an accounting officer. This term has been replaced with an accountable officer, which is a terminology that is used within the Public Procurement and Disposal of Public Properties Bill and the Public Finance Management Act. So that brings that terminology and that role, that function, in line with that of existing legislation. So, Mr. President, these are the 4 areas of change, of amendment to the principal bill. It brings greater clarity. It addresses certain errors that existed in the original act. And it's for those reasons, Mr. President, that I commend this bill for its second reading. I thank you.
Senator, the Honorable Eisenberg.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, one cannot help but be amused by this initiative on the part of the government. The government now comes before the House with a bill saying that we want to, that the existing bill provides for a deputy director, but does not specify how that deputy director is going to be appointed, what role they're going to be playing, the term of office, how they may be disqualified from the position, and so on. And that we are making this amendment because we consider it important to address those issues. All right. What is interesting, Mr. President, is that the existing law makes provisions for a director. And while this government is coming to us and trying to sanitize the law so as to make provisions for a deputy director or specify the qualifications and other criteria for the appointment of a deputy director, the government has failed or refused to appoint a director over the last 5 years. To appoint a director to the Financial Intelligence Unit, a unit that is charged with the responsibility, Mr. President, of supervising the area of financial crimes, responsible for the investigation of financial crimes, a body that is charged with the responsibility to ensure, for example, Mr. President, that our international obligations under the Financial Action Task Force, issues and the Caribbean Action Task Force, issues relating to money laundering, issues relating to financing terrorism, issues relating to proceeds of crime, issues relating to evasion of international sanctions. All of these critical issues that are of such importance, the government has failed to appoint a director. And they have done so because they want to conveniently be able to say that the person who is actually de facto the director of the Financial Intelligence Unit is not really the director. They want to ensure that he can hold that position, but they have the excuse of saying, we have never appointed him in that position. Who is that person? Mr. Tafara Pay. Mr. President, a body like this, there is no good reason, there is no justification why a body like this should have somebody in an acting position for 5 years. In an acting position for 5 years. There is no good reason. What have they done? They brought Mr. Tafara Pay into the position. They say he's acted, and basically he's doing the job. Why do they want him to continue to act? Because under Section 15 of the law, and I'm glad that the member took the time out to specify what Section 15 of the Financial Intelligence Unit Act says. Under Section 15 of the law, Mr. President, it says that a person is disqualified a person is disqualified from holding that position if that person becomes a politically exposed person. A person is disqualified from holding the position if that person is or becomes a politically exposed person. The question we must ask, Mr. President, is whether or not Mr. Tafara Pay is a politically exposed person. That's the question. Now, I must say, I have absolutely no difficulty with Mr. Tafara Pay. I do not question his competence. I do not question his experience. I have no reason to wonder whether or not Mr. Tafara Pay is capable of doing a good job. The question is Mr. Tafara Pay a politically exposed person? And Mr. President, when we look at how politically exposed persons defined in these types of legislation, proceeds of crime legislation, money laundering legislation, other financial crimes legislation, terrorism legislation, anti-terrorism legislation, evasion of international sanctions legislation. When we look at all of the areas involving international crime and how a politically exposed person is defined, it makes it clear, Mr. President, that a person who is the husband of a minister of government is a politically exposed person. Because if indeed Mr. Tafara Pay is called upon at any time to investigate, God forbid, his wife is accused of something. He's married to Minister Emlyn Pay. That is not any secret. Yes? If, God forbid, his wife is called upon to investigate an issue or an allegation involving his wife, Ms. Emlyn Pay, Minister Emlyn Pay, he is placed in a position where his loyalties and his devotion is torn between his responsibility to the state and his love and loyalty and responsibility to his family. He is put in a position where he is forced to make choices that may compromise his professional judgment and his professional integrity. And this is precisely why the laws make it clear that such a person should not be put in that position and should not hold that position. Mr. Tafara Pay is now the director of the FIU. And we have been told he's not the director, he's acting as the director. And we can allow him to act for the last 5 years because his wife is the minister. In fact, at one stage, Mr. President, I don't know if she still is, but his wife was actually the minister in charge of the CBI program. Imagine that. In charge of the Citizenship by Investment program, a program that involves applications for passports, a program, Mr. President, that involves individuals coming, a program that involves risks that individuals may use the cover of diplomacy and the cover of a second passport to engage in criminal behavior and to evade justice and to evade international prosecution. A program, Mr. President, where people may be prepared to pay monies to others in order to get a passport. We are hearing these allegations today, Mr. President, of Grenadia's diplomatic passports even being sold. We are seeing articles up and down the stage that Grenadian passports are being sold for $1 million US. Grenadian diplomatic passports. If, Mr. President, a minister of government is in charge of an area of this kind, and her husband is the person who is going to investigate any of these crimes or allegations, would it not put that person in an awkward position? They're not concerned about that. They are not concerned about making sure that the integrity of the office is protected. They are not concerned about making sure that there is a director of the FIU, not an acting director, not a sham director, not a smoke and mirror situation, but a real and genuine fulfillment of the obligation to fill the public office of director in a transparent and honorable way, without looking for excuses and looking for ways to duck and dance and to evade the principles of accountability and transparency in government. Mr. President, I am really quite amazed that ignoring all of that, ignoring the substantial risks that we face in this area, ignoring the substantial challenges and difficulties that Mr. Tafara is put in and his relationship with Ms. Emlyn Pay, we come in here today and say we are concerned that the law in its present construct does not sufficiently spell out what the deputy director is going to do, and how the deputy director is going to be appointed, and how the deputy director is going to be disqualified. Are those the real concerns? Is this the most important concern that we face? Is it that the government is now trying to appoint on the eve of the election an acting deputy director to give one of the boys a job before the election is called? Is this a motive? In other words, what are we really dealing with here? Are we getting the true substance of this, or are we playing games with the nation? Mr. President, this is ridiculous. In principle, I have no difficulty with amending the law, because it makes sense that if you say that somebody is a deputy director, you will want to indicate how that person is appointed, how that person keeps the job, how that person is terminated, and so on. I have no difficulty with that. What I'm saying, Mr. President, we're looking at the leaves and we're forgetting the tree. We're looking at the leaves and we're forgetting the tree. And the problem is, what is sad about this, it's not an accident. It's deliberate and willful. And that is what I take objection to. It's deliberate and willful. I feel as though I would feel fraudulent to come here and support this piece of legislation while this arrangement with Mr. Tafara Pay and his relationship with Ms. Emlyn Pay remains as it is, and the government fails and refuses to address this issue. We have raised this issue 1,000,000 times. Section 15 of the law says the person who holds the office of Director of the Financial Intelligence Unit must not be a politically exposed person. Mr. Tafara Pay is a politically exposed person. I have no difficulty with him. I have no difficulty with Minister Emlyn Pay. Mr. Tafara Pay is a politically exposed person and ought not to hold that position as Director of the Financial Intelligence Unit. And Mr. President, it gives us an opportunity to fix this problem. Stop playing games. Stop playing these little Mickey Mouse games with the people and address the real problems facing our country.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, I rise to give my full support to the bill that is before us for two simple reasons. The Honorable Member, Leader of Government Business, in presenting the bill, said very clearly that the first objective here is to ensure that the police officers who are seconded to this department, there is no misconception as to their abilities to perform the role as police officers, because primarily that's who they are. And based on the legislation, it's created what would have been an anomaly, and we wanted to clarify this at this point in time, so we know officers within the FIU have the same powers that they came with from the police department to function with all the powers. Well, if you want to say it's a haze, if you say haze, but to make it clear, basically it's to make it clear, and no one could should think otherwise. And secondly, to establish the directives or the principles as it relates to a deputy director. What I didn't hear from the member, if he is against establishing the protocol that will govern the appointment of a deputy director. All this shenanigans about appointment for boys, job for the boys, we are accustomed to hearing those things. But let's deal with the salient point that is before us. To ensure that you put people in a position and there are specific guidelines as to how they should function and operate. And that's what the law before us is clearly stating. To speak to selling of passports and all this. I know, Mr. President, there has been this fake news site that came up. And only the member on the other side that was supporting it, and they were pushing it, and spoke quite a lot of things as it relates to selling of passports and the likes.
I rise on a point of order, please. The honorable member is accusing me of supporting a fake website. That's effectively what he's saying. Yes? Says the member, he knows this fake website has come out.
To me, in the standing orders, what has been breached, and let's deal with that.
Standing order number 36, Mr. President.
Okay, 1 second. Standing order 36.
Subsection 5.
Subsection 5.
Makes it clear that no senator shall impute improper motives to any member.
How is his suggestion that you support a fake website?
I'm sorry?
How is it that his suggestion, going back to his actual words, that you support a fake website, how does that impute an improper motive? To me, it's more an expression of an opinion.
Mr. President, if I know a site to be fake and I'm supporting it, my motives are not...
But he didn't say you know the site to be fake. He
sorry?
is saying, from what I've gleaned from what he said, he has made a determination that the site is a fake site. He's not saying that you knowingly support a fake site.
Very well.
So they're two different things.
Very well. Very well.
So how does he impute? Okay. Okay, fine. Senator, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, I can go further because the site has been promoted on the official pages of the National Democratic Congress. And they have been sharing it over and over. But what is damaging here is to use the liberty within the House to say and to give information that you know is not true. That $1 million been spent or paid for Grenada's passport. There is no facts to substantiate this.
Mr. President,
Yes, Senator.
I now rise on the same objection. The member is accusing me of giving information to the public that I know is not true, but having an improper motive. And this offends standing order number 36. I asked, subsection 5, the very one I raised earlier. I asked that the member withdraw that statement, please.
Senator Gawi. As far as he's aware, from your statement made while you were on your feet, that diplomatic passports or a diplomatic passport was sold for $1 million. from my recall, and I could summon the Hansard to be more accurate on this, some statement was made by your good self in respect of some diplomatic passport or passports being sold for $1 million. I think that's
Being in the U.S.
Well, I can't
Being in
recall
US.
whether it's U.S. or not, but the quantity of $1 million linked to the sale of a diplomatic passport, such a statement was made to my hearing and to the House. Senator Garway is saying such a statement is untrue.
And there's no factual basis.
One
Oh,
second.
sorry.
I don't see improper motives there again. I mean, we could replay the statement, I can ask the Hansard, but as I said, it's so pretty recent that I haven't recalled it word for word, but there was a link between the sale of a diplomatic passport or passports to the sum of $1 million. And that's what he's making reference to. He's making reference to a statement you have made. And he is saying that to the best of his knowledge, and these are my words, that statement is untrue. It's inaccurate. How does that impute improper motives to yourself? Because you made the statement, you know. He isn't making it up.
Right. Well, Mr. President, first of all, when you say that I make the statement, we must clarify what the statement is. What is the statement that I made? Yes, that's important because we can't just say I made a statement or I made the statement. The statement that I made, Mr. President, is that there are allegations that diplomatic passports are being sold. Yes? So that's my statement. So it is not fair to say, well, you say something about diplomatic passports being sold. Do not leave out the word allegation because that is central, that is material to my statement. Mr. President, I made the point very clearly that there are allegations being made of passports being sold. 1. 2, the member expressly said, and we can go back to the answer, the member expressly said that I'm coming here in the parliament and making statements that I know are not true. In other words, I'm here trying to deceive the public because I know something is not true and I'm trying to represent to the public that it is not true. It is offensive and it imputes an improper motive. You may agree, you may not agree. But Mr. President, it is the basis of my objection is that Standing Order number 35 makes it absolutely clear that no senator is to impute improper motive on the part of other senators. I'm contending that the remarks by the member that I know statements about the sale of diplomatic passports to be untrue and I'm coming here and trying to represent that is imputing an improper motive. And I'm asking you to direct the member to withdraw that statement.
Look. I've directed the clerk to retrieve from the Hansard the verbatim record of the two statements made. Once that is available, then I will weigh up because there is in fact a serious, well, this one is not an allegation but a charge that Standing Order number 36 is breached. The imputation rule is breached. And before I can make a determination, I would need to get the verbatim record, and I've directed the clerk to secure those. The internet is currently down, so it will take us a little while, but hopefully we'll be able to get this before the session is finished. So, Senator Garway, what I would ask that we leave this matter in abeyance for the moment. The appeal of Senator Burke is current and is still on the table. Yes? And let us move on. Okay?
Just to seek clarity, Mr. Chair, Mr. President, I know he presented his case. I haven't yet presented my case to substantiate what I've said. So am I to do that now or wait when we hear the verbatim?
Otherwise, it takes the debate into a perpetual, well, I didn't say this, this is what I said, I didn't
agree.
say this, and therefore it will consume a lot of our
I
time.
will so
I mean, I will willingly stay here up until the early hours of Christmas morning.
No, I can't.
It's right. So that's why I want to get the verbatim, and then we will consider both sides of the argument. But I can assure you, you'll have your fair opportunity to enter your defense.
Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Yes.
So, just to continue, Mr. President, the facts speaks for itself. What this bill seeks to do, and there is nothing untoward here, no hidden agenda, but to ensure that the laws are very clear and precise, and persons functioning within various positions have the guideline and as to what is required of them. And that's what this piece is seeking to do as it relates to the Deputy Director of the FIU. With this, Mr. President, I give my full support for the second reading of the bill.
Bernadine?
Mr. President, I would be remiss in my duties if I didn't get to my feet.
I meant no disrespect when I inadvertently left out the Alexis link to the name. So
It is an important part, but I understand fully, Mr. President. No problem at all. I needed to stand at this point because I would feel I was remiss in my duties if I didn't do so. To express, I am disturbed by the tone and manner that has developed and is developing in this House. It's a very aggressive and unfortunate approach, and I object, Mr. President, to the language used by Senator Garraway, and for that matter by Senator Steele. It suggests a lot more motive than coming to this House and debating the issues of the people. We are not here to fight each other, to put down each other. I mean, people must be free to say how the picture looks from their side how the thing looks from their side of the picture. Instead of that, I'm hearing all manner of fake news, and the NDC had things on their website. What does this have to do with the substantive issue? And I must say, I find it disturbing. I find it offensive. I am beginning to feel very uncomfortable in this House because I find so many things are imputed. What is all this aggression and fighting about? We're not here to fight over personalities. We are here to debate the issues of the people. I myself have one question, but you make me scared to bring it up, madam. You discover all manner of things being imputed. I would like to understand, Mr. President, how come in other secondments, I'm just asking a question. In other secondments, for example, we have seconded people from our ministry. As I recall a particular example where a chief education officer was seconded to assist in tertiary duties, and she wasn't allowed to continue her duties as a chief education officer. She became fully an officer involved in advising the government on tertiary issues. And I just wondered how come in this particular case we have presented the fact that the Public Service Commission must allow the person to also influence where they came from, in addition to where they're moving ahead. And I wanted to ask the leader of government business to shed a little light on this. But you're intimidating me, man. All of a sudden I become all kinds of personal imputations about fake website and who has dirty approach and unworthy intentions. You're imputing unworthy intention indeed on fellow senators, and that's not acceptable. It's not acceptable at all, and I don't want to feel intimidated in this House. I want to be free to express. If I have a concern, I must understand. Must be able to understand, and I'm objecting to the language used by both senators. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senators, just let me just say this, right? It's unfortunate that there's an expression of inhibition in the House over which I preside. Every senator, I would wish to believe, have the right to speak. And every senator will be allowed to speak. Of course, there are rules which govern everything. And in the rough and tumble of the politics, I mean, you know, there would be some give and take and so on. And when there's a dispute, the disputants will appeal to the chair for the necessary order to ensue. So I just want to rest those fears aside. Politics is a pretty, well, maybe because I come from a trade union background, I understand the art of struggle and so on. But I really would not wish any senator to feel inhibited in any way, right, to be able to speak, because this is what Parliament does. Parliament speaks. That's the instrument that we use. So feel free and don't feel intimidated. And any senator who goes out of line, it's my obligation to bring that senator back on track. We have an objection that a particular rule was broken, and we're dealing with that matter on the way at the moment. So again, I just thought that I should underscore this, Senator. And the reason why I allowed you to continue, because it wasn't actually a debate on the bill. So I would not apply the relevancy rule here, but I certainly could. But I thought it was important to allow senators to ventilate what's on their mind and so on. And I will refer senators to the spirit of the season. You know, I think that the majority religion here is Christianity, and this is a big event in the Christian calendar, and therefore I would intone senators to take a cue of the spirit of the season, and let's try and end this sitting in that vein. So, any other senator? You wish to continue?
Just to say thank you, Mr. President. In your wisdom, I'm glad it was summarized and clarified. So, you know, things are therefore a lot more comfortable. Thank you, Mr. President.
But feel free to call on the chair at any time, including if you see any Russians, you can call on me if they're threatening, you know. So call on me at any time. That's why I'm here. Any Senator David?
Yes, Mr. President, if I may, just to say on the issue of secondment, just to clarify for the goodly senator, that the issue that is being raised here is that when police officers are seconded to FIU, they remain police officers. So I think what the bill is intending to do is to ensure that they maintain their powers as police officers. So when they go to the FIU, they're not stripped of the other powers that are indicated there of search and seizure and so on, but there are other powers that police officers have. In other words, it's not like a teacher going to the Ministry of Finance. They seconded to the Ministry of Finance. They don't go with any teacher power, as it were. Being a police officer, there are certain powers that you have as a police officer that is going to be maintained. And it is just clarifying that, because I suspect that some very wise attorney will at some point challenge the power of the FIU officers who act pursuant to police powers while they are FIU officers. And that can lead to some very serious difficulties in many of the legal matters that arise. And I've seen it in court, and I have experienced it in court. So it's just a matter of preserving the power of the police officers as police officers, even when they're acting in FIU. I mean, we all in a legal fraternity, we come into contact with police officers, because for us, FIU officers are police officers. Apart from the administrative personnel in FIU, they're mostly police officers. So they do search, they arrest, they charge, they do other things apart from the powers they now have of checking into accounts and doing the financial checks that police officers come with. So I just want to clarify that for Senator Bernardine. With respect to the amendment, I'm absolutely in support of it. The fact of outlining what the director and the deputy, what the deputy director, his or her powers would be, and obligations and responsibilities. With respect to the other issues raised, I have no concerns at this time, because I think the unit has been running quite efficiently. There's been no, I'm not going to say that the members should not raise the issue, but for all practical purposes, these are new units. This is a new area, money laundering, financial crimes. These are new areas that we are developing, and as we go along, we will make the necessary adjustments where they need to be. These are, it is only recently, Mr. President, because of the terrorism issue and the drugs issue, that we are going into this. In fact, many attorneys are now having to be retrained in order to deal with these financial crimes. For example, I come into contact with a whole lot of these confiscation and forfeiture. Some of them I find extremely draconian. Some of them are legitimate in their essence. But with respect to, I don't want to go into talk about Mr. P and Mrs. P. I mean, that is, to me, that is neither here nor there. I'm sure there could be discussions with the opposition. I have a difficulty when the member who just raised the issue of feeling intimidated. I don't think anybody in here feels intimidated. We are big people. I mean, we are big people. Most of us have gone through life and are much, I see a light on, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. How does one determine the degree of intimidation of any human? It is not a reasonable statement to make. What intimidates one person doesn't intimidate another.
Okay,
Thank you, Mr. President.
I'll rephrase my comment. All of us inside of here, Mr. President, should be big enough to take criticism. Maybe if some are not, then that's a matter for them. I'm just indicating that in the rough and tumble, I've been through hell and back in this politics, and I've never complained to anybody, to you, not to anybody, Mr. President. I take my blows and I move along. I move along quietly, smiling every day. All I'm saying is this, that when we become senators or we become politicians or leaders or deputy leaders or PROs, whatever we become in politics, we must understand that there is going to be a to and fro. What is important is that at the end of the day, we keep in mind that we are here to serve the people's business, and we will disagree, we will fight, we will, because, Mr. President, for years I've been beaten up. The light is on. Go ahead.
Mr. President, some people's careers are fighting and beating up. Others of us don't come to fight and beat up. We come to discuss and dialogue over matters pertaining to the development of a country. I appreciate fully some of our careers. We are gladiators in our circle, and therefore willing to fight all day long or to put down. That is not what the purpose of the business is. The purpose of the business is to come to certain conclusions. And if therefore I am not free to talk, I am not concerned about your degree of tolerance or your willingness to fight. The issue is we must come to certain conclusions, and we must do so in a logical and sequential fashion and determine what needs to be done. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President, I don't want to go back and forth.
Well, yes. I was just about to announce that I have to rein the horse. Because, we can't have a back and forth. We have a bill before us, again, one second, Senator David. I said we have a bill before us. And again, I'm asking senators to be minded of our cultural tradition. This is the Christians' most celebrated season. So, with that in mind, let us engage. But I will have to bring an end to the back and forth on matters that don't concern the bill. And I'm not saying so by apologizing, I'm just saying the rules, because it's getting back and forth, and we're not debating the bill, we're debating each other, and that's a problem. So I urge senators, please. Yes? Senator David, you have the
Mr. President, everybody knows me, I'm not. I was simply saying with a broad smile that I do hope that we don't feel intimidated. We shouldn't. Yes, and I was just supporting what you said, Mr. President, because it was raised by a senator. This is Christmas, let's move along. With respect to the bill, Mr. President, and I absolutely support the bill. My view has been expressed. I've clarified the issue of secondment. I was just concerned because if a senator, Mr. President, raises the issue of intimidation from this side, I am on this side, and I just want to say that I have no such intention of intimidating. You ruled on it, yes.
Let's
you ruled
move on
it.
the bill. No, I don't rule, but I'm trying to get the House.
No, I'm
you
doing
see,
it
because if I don't bring it to an end,
it's at an end.
then the other side would be encouraged to respond, and then we will have a back and forth for the entire day. So this is why I'm asking senators, please, let us focus on the bill. So Senator Davis, have you finished with the bill? Or
yes,
not?
Mr. President.
Okay, all right, thanks. Honorable members, the question is that the bill be read a second time.
Well, closing, if I may just wrap up the presentation of this bill. I've listened to the comments from both sides, and we've kind of gone off on one or two tangents. I didn't think any of us in this honorable House was timid or thin-skinned, but we can move on from that. The point, key point, Mr. President, is the amendments that have been brought before, 4 changes, are all legitimate, straightforward, without any sinister motive to it. And there are those on the other side who want to attach some baggage to this, Mr. President, which is not valid. A point that is important to raise and for us all to understand, especially Senator Burke, who spoke at great length at how irresponsible it is of this administration not to have anybody appointed to the position of director. So why are we trying to regularize the legislation? Why are we trying to correct things when we have nobody appointed, formally appointed or confirmed in that position? And how irresponsible. The times we live in today, there are sensitivities. The level of crimes that are committed, the sophistication of crimes, the type of crimes is evolving. But Mr. President, no one has been appointed, confirmed in either the position of director or deputy director since 2009. 2009, Mr. President. So the former administration, with all of the concerns they have over our national security, they had every opportunity not only to bring legislation to the House to correct errors within it and to strengthen and bring clarity to it, but they did not see it fit then to appoint anyone in that position. That doesn't make it right now in 2017, or the period 2013 to now, that still isn't the case. But that then raises the question, and I think it's the fundamental question that needs to be answered, is whether the unit is functioning as it should. Is there the integrity? Is there the level of efficiency? Is there the level of focus? Is there the level of performance that is needed for such an important unit? And the answer is absolutely, Mr. President. Mr. President, the level of due diligence, the level of integrity that exists within the Financial Intelligence Unit has been applauded by the international community, Mr. President. Whether it's linking it to our CBI program, whether it's linking it to the investment climate that we have, applauded. The CBI program, which the members on the other side continue to criticize, is viewed as being the gold standard in terms of due diligence, in terms of the integrity of the program, in terms of the detail and the effort and focus of the investigative processes of our FIU, who are, together with other security and intelligence agencies that the government of Grenada works with, that the FIU interface with, is viewed as the gold standard. So the question is the unit doing what it is supposed to? And the answer is yes, Mr. President. That is our starting point. If we want to talk about appointments, as I said, they had every opportunity. Why did they not do it in 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013? So, Mr. President, we can all throw stones and we can all find fault. But I come back to the point that the unit is functioning precisely as it ought to. The issue over politically exposed persons. The senator on the other side is correct. We do need to bring further amendments to this House with regard to this bill, and referencing specifically the issue of politically exposed persons, because under the current legislation, Mr. President, any person appointed in that position, based on the way the legislation is currently written, will be an politically exposed person. Anyone. So the legislation as it stands now, the definitions provided, are flawed, and we will be bringing before this House amendments to that to address that particular point. So, Mr. President, and just picking up on the final point from Senator Benedine, the FIU is a law enforcement agency. So again, there is absolutely nothing sinister, there is nothing irregular in terms of making it abundantly clear within the legislation that a seconded police officer, a very specialized skill set, a very specialized set of functions, duties, and responsibilities be carried through into this other law enforcement agency. So, Mr. President, as I said, there is the 4 amendments, or the 4 areas that have been brought before this House are all in keeping with tightening up the legislation in this particular area. Yes, there are additional areas that need to be tightened and will be in due course. But what these changes bring is greater clarity. It removes ambiguities, it removes errors that exist in that legislation, and it is for all of those reasons, Mr. President, that I commend this bill for its second reading.
Senator Burke, you leaving the chamber? No, I saw you vacated your seat, so I was wondering if you were leaving the chamber. No. Well, the reason I'm inquiring is that the Hansard is ready. Oh, okay. Well, then I'll deal with it when you come back. Yeah. I didn't mean you were walking out, you know. That's why I said the word leaving the chamber, not walking out of the chamber. Yes. The question is that the bill be ready second time. Clerk. Sorry. Yeah. All those... Sorry. Honorable members, the question is that the bill be ready second time. All those who have that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it.
A bill for an act shortly entitled Financial Intelligence Unit Amendment Bill 2017.
Mr. President, I beg to move that the Senate resolve itself into a committee of the whole Senate to consider the bill clause by clause.
Honorable members, the question is that the Senate resolves itself into a committee of the whole Senate to consider the bill clause by clause. Those who have that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary opinion, say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it. Honorable members, the House is now resolved into the committee to consider the bill. Honorable members, that at this stage in the bill is where a lot of the questioning Senator Bernardine, because we are not as formal as we are, and you can ask several questions from different angles. So at the committee stage of the bill, it really allows for, free speech, although the rules still apply, but you can put up several questions, you can make suggestions, etc., etc. You could seek clarity on some matter which wasn't clear. So we do have two new members in the House, so I'm spending some time trying to familiarize them with the processes of the House. So it's at this stage now, when we're going through clause by clause, if there's an issue in a clause that you have some reservations on, that you don't properly understand it, or you think it's contradictory, and you wish to point that out and to offer some amendments to the clause, this is the place to do it. This is the stage at which that's done. So,
Clause 2, amendment of Section 9 of Principal Act.
the question is, Clause 2, amendment of Section 9 of Principal Act forms part of this bill. All those who have that opinion say aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it.
Clause 3, amendment of Section 10 of Principal Act.
Honorable members, the question is, Clause 3, amendment of Section 10 of Principal Act forms part of the bill. All those who have that opinion say aye. To the contrary view say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it.
Clause 4, insertion of Section 14A to Principal Act.
Honorable members, the question is, insertion of Section 14A of Principal Act, Clause 4, forms part of the bill. Those who have that opinion say aye. To the contrary view say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it.
Clause 5, amendment of Section 16 of Principal Act.
Honorable members, the question is Clause 5, amendment to Section 16 of Principal Act, forms part of the bill. Those who have that opinion say aye. To the contrary view say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it.
Clause 6, amendment of Section 18 of Principal Act.
Honorable members, the question is Clause 6, amendment to Section 18 of Principal Act forms part of the bill. Those who have that opinion say aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it.
Clause 1, short title.
Honorable members, the question is that Clause 1, short title, forms part of the bill. All those who have that opinion say aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it. Senator C.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that the Senate resumes and the Chairman of the Committee reports progress on the bill.
Honorable members, as many of who are of that opinion say aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it. Honorable members, the Senate now resumes. I have to report that the bill was considered by a committee of the whole Senate, clause by clause, and passed without amendment. Senator Steele.
Mr. President, I beg to move the third reading of the bill.
Honorable members, the question proposed is that the bill be ready third time. Honorable members, the question is that the bill be ready third time and passed. All those who have that opinion say aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it.
A bill for an act shortly entitled Financial Intelligence Unit Amendment Bill 2017.
Okay, Senators, there is still pending before me an appeal in respect of a request to withdraw a statement made by one senator on this side who would have breached the imputation rule, which is Rule 36. Could the Hansard reporter start first with the statements made by Senator the Honorable Nazem Burke in respect to this matter? We will replay it in the order in which it was done. So Senator Burke, we will have a repeat of what you said, and then we will move over to Senator Garwe, a repeat of what he said, and then I'll make a determination as to whether or not there was a breach of Standing Order number 36. Could the volume be up, please, because we can't hear? Could the volume be... Hansard reporters, just cue in that last sentence and replay it again for me, please.
Actually, the minister of the CBI program. Imagine that. In charge of the Citizenship by Investment program, a program that involves applications for passport, a program, Mr. President, that involves individuals coming, a program that involves risks that individuals may use the cover of diplomacy and the cover of a second passport to engage in criminal behavior and to evade justice and to evade international prosecution. A program, Mr. President, where people may be prepared to pay monies to others in order to get a passport. We are hearing these allegations today, Mr. President, of Grenadians' diplomatic passports even being sold. We are seeing articles up and down the stage that Grenadian passports are being sold for $1 million US. Grenadian diplomatic passports. If, Mr. President, a minister...
Okay, could we then play the cue of Senator Garwe's statement, which triggered the objection.
Should think otherwise. And secondly, to establish the directives and the principles as it relates to a deputy director. Why didn't hear from the member if he is against establishing the protocol that will govern the appointment of a deputy director? All the shenanigans about appointment for boys, job for the boys, we are constantly hearing those things. But let's deal with the salient point that is before us. To ensure that you put people in position and there are specific guidance as to how they should function and operate. And that's what the law before us is clearly stated. To speak to setting up passports and all this. I know, Mr. President, there has been this fake news site that came up. And only the men on the other side that was supporting it, and they were pushing it. And it spoke quite a lot of things as it relates to setting up the passports and the likes.
I rise.
Is this the end of the clip? Because I dealt with that objection. So it's the second objection. So you need to go forward a bit more.
Standing order number 36.
Standing order 36.
Subsection 5. Subsection makes it clear that no senator shall include promoted to any member.
All of his suggestions that he supports a fake website. Sorry? How is it that his suggestion, going back to the natural way, that you support a fake website, how does that impute an improper motive? There is one expression about it.
Mr. President, if
But he didn't say you know the site to be fake. He is saying, what I'm seeing from what he said, he has made a determination that the site is a fake site. He's not saying that you knowingly support a fake site. They're two different things. So how does he impute? Senator Yazoo. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, I can go further because the site has been promoted on official pages
Senate.
of the National Democratic Congress. And they have been sharing it over and over. But what is damaging here is to use the liberty within the House to say and give information that is not true. That $1 million is paid for Muni's passport. There is no facts to substantiate this.
I now rise on the same of the members of the
this offense.
Could they just continue a little bit? Rather than cut the clip there, could you just let it run a few more moments? There's some problem there. I want to suggest that we move on to the other bills and we come back towards this towards the end. Yes? Okay. Look, it's not possible for them to quickly type this thing up. Honorable members, I want to suggest
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I beg to introduce for first reading a bill for an act shortly entitled Customs Amendment Bill Number 3, Custom Amendment Number 3 Bill 2017.
An act to amend the Customs Act Number 9 of 2015, shortly entitled Customs Amendment Number 3 Bill 2017.
Mr. President, I beg to move that the relevant standing orders of the Senate be suspended to enable the bill to be taken through all its stages at this sitting.
Honorable members, the question is that the relevant standing orders be suspended to enable the bill to be taken through all of its stages at this sitting. All those who have that opinion say aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it.
Mr. President, I beg to move the second reading of the bill.
Honorable members, the question proposed is that the bill be read a second time. Senator Cox.
Mr. President, the bill before this Honorable House seeks to amend the Customs Act number 9 of 2015, Mr. President. This amendment is basically two clauses. The first clause which seeks to provide for the short title, but the substantive amendment is laid within the second clause of this bill, Mr. President. Mr. President, this bill provides for the repeal of subsection 248 of the Principal Act, and by inserting a new subsection 2 which seeks to guide the minister on matters of which regulation should cover and include the establishment of the Customs Brokers and Tariff Clerks Board, the composition of the board, the tenure of members of that board and the functions, powers of the board, expenses, revenues relating to the board, procedures and other matters relating to the functions of the board, licensing and regulation of customs, brokers and tariff clerks. Mr. President, the purpose of this amendment is to add more clarity and to add more substance to this section of the Act for the purpose of regulating the customs, brokers and tariff clerks to ensure that they perform their functions in a manner that is keeping within the regulations of and operations of both customs and other stakeholder institutions. Mr. President, the repeal of the 248 of the Principal Act. The Principal Act, Mr. President, just to read, the Principal Act 248 only mentions the minister may make regulations generally respecting custom brokers. That is all that is mentioned within the Principal Act. And so this amendment offers more information, more clarity on what areas would be contained within the regulations that will be so drafted with the consent of the minister, Mr. President. So, Mr. President, in looking at the amendment, the new section 248(2) reads, without limiting generally of subsection 1, the minister may make regulations for A, the establishment of a customs brokers and tariffs clerk board, its composition, its tenure, members, functions, expenses, revenue, and other matters. Licensing, registration, and examination of customs, brokers, and tariff clerks. C, renewal and revocation of license granted to customs, brokers, and tariff clerks. D, recognition of license granted in other CARICOM member states to persons to practice as custom brokers and tariff clerks. Payment of fees, that's E. E deals with payment of fees and applications for license. F deals with code of conduct. Mr. President, this is critical because we want to ensure that our custom brokers and tariff clerks operate in a manner that is so acceptable. G deals with penalties in accordance with subsection 246 of the Principal Act regarding to custom brokers and tariff clerks. Mr. President, these are the main amendments that are contained within this bill, which seeks to improve and to give more clarity as to the operations of our custom brokers and tariff clerks, Mr. President. Mr. President, with these, for these reasons, I commend this bill for the second reading.
Time. All those who have that opinion say aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it.
A bill for an act shortly entitled Customs Amendment Number 3, Bill 2017.
Senator the Honorable Nolan Cox.
Mr. President, I beg to move that the Senate resolve itself into a committee of the whole Senate to consider the bill clause by clause.
Honorable members, the question is that the Senate resolves itself into a committee of the whole Senate to consider the bill clause by clause. Those who have that opinion say aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it. Honorable members, the House is now resolved into committee.
Clause 2, repeal and substitution of Section 248 of Principal Act.
Honorable members, the question is Clause 2, repeal and substitution of Section 248 of Principal Act forms part of the bill. All those who have that opinion say aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it.
Clause 1, short title.
Honorable members, the question is Clause 1, short title forms part of the bill. All those who have that opinion say aye. Of the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it.
Mr. President, I beg to move that the Senate resumes and the chairman of the committee report progress on the bill.
Honorable members, the question is that the Senate resumes and the chairman reports progress of the bill. All those who have that opinion say aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it. Honorable members, the House now resumes.
Mr. President, I beg to move that the chairman's report be adopted.
Considered by a committee of the whole Senate and passed without amendment. Senator.
Mr. President, I beg that the chairman's report be adopted.
Honorable members, the question is that the chairman's report be adopted. All those who have that opinion say aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it.
Mr. President, I beg to move the third reading of the bill.
Honorable members, the question is that the bill be ready third time. Honorable members, the question is that the bill be ready third time and passed. All those who have that opinion say aye. To the contrary view say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it.
A bill for an act shortly entitled Customs Amendment Number 3, Bill 2017.
Honorable Senators, before we move on, before me, and we're having some problems reproducing the relevant portions on the system that we have there. What I want to suggest, Senator Garvey, could you just withdraw what you've said and just rephrase it so as to get rid of the contention so that we could move on with the rest of the business of the House?
Mr. President, I don't fully understand when you say withdraw. The member made statements and allegations, which was shared by some blogger on his blog. The very said, basically allegation. Those allegations were reproduced and promoted by the National Democratic Congress. The government subsequently on the 21st of August published, as I say, Government of Grenada refutes as falsehood claims by so-called financial blogger of the sale of diplomatic passports. Those information are available. The member is aware of it. So when I said he is repeating falsehood here because those claims were refuted by the government, is either you believe the government or you believe what that financial blogger, who is a confessed, as I said, money launderer, former convict and the likes. If you want to support that and the member is saying he's supporting that rather than the government, I have an issue with that. But if that is the issue, I am saying to us as a people, this is your government that the people have voted into office. And if your government say to you, the people, we have not sold any diplomatic passport, it is wrong. And for the opposition to take the saying of a fraudster and known criminal, he said so, as word over the government, I have an issue with that.
Yeah, but let me just, that I have Senator Garvey. There's a suggestion that he knowingly, I understand everything that is being said. I understand that there may be information posted on the site of a political party. But he is saying that he did not knowingly give wrong information. He said there are allegations floating about the place.
Okay,
and what he did was he repeated those allegations. But you are saying that he knowingly he knowingly does this, spreading these untruths.
So,
and
Mr.
he is
President,
saying, as far as he's concerned, they're just allegations that have been made, and he's just repeating those allegations. So, yeah, Senator Garvey said he said that there were allegations. You are saying that he is knowingly.
So, Mr. President, my initial difficulty is this. Yes, he claims that it's an allegation. I have no problem. I understand the journalistic license and the legal license by using appears, allegations. I understand that. But what I'm saying, it's a question now of who you believe as an individual. If your government, whom the people have given the mandate to rule this country, would say is not true, you should accept that. However, I would change the word, but I needed to get that point in. I would change the sentence, I would rephrase it, but I needed to get a point in. We have to trust more of our people. And our government never was taken to court, nor sent to jail, and I would always support what my government would have said. My member on the other side said he don't trust the government, he's supporting a known convict, fine. So, from my understanding, despite the fact it's an allegation, but to continue to repeat the allegation here, when the government would have refuted the allegation as being false, I have a difficulty that my member or the member on the other side will continue to purport that. But in as much as he said his allegations, I will agree it's the allegation. But government, as always, should be given the first place in belief.
Yes? Okay.
Mr. President, I am asking that the member withdraw the statement.
Well, he just did, didn't he?
I did not hear it, Mr. President.
He said in light of your objection, he's withdrawing the statement, but he went on to clarify and to embellish a bit by saying that he is, and I'm just paraphrasing, that he's a bit disturbed that one would be propagating the lines of a convicted felon in matters rather than believe elected government. So he has withdrawn
Mr. President, the matter is entirely in your hands.
No, but I'm saying he has withdrawn the statement because...
I think we all understand the English language sufficiently well. If you are satisfied that the member has withdrawn that statement, then I will abide with your decision, your ruling. I am not satisfied. I have not heard the member withdraw the statement, but I'm prepared to abide by your decision.
Well, as I said, the member was given an opportunity and he said statement, since you said it was an allegation. I'm repeating what he's saying so we can move on with the issue, and the Hansard will report accordingly. Yeah? The Honorable Winston Garvey.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, I rise to introduce for the first reading a bill for an act entitled Representation of the People's Amendment Bill 2017.
An act to amend the Representation of the People Act, Cap 286A, shortly entitled Representation of the People Amendment Bill 2017.
Mr. President, I beg to move that the relevant standing orders of the Senate be suspended to enable the bill to be taken through all its stages at this sitting.
Honorable members, the question is that the relevant standing orders be suspended to enable this bill to be taken through all of its stages at this sitting. Those who have that opinion say aye. To the contrary, say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it.
Mr. President, I beg to move the second reading of the bill.
Honorable members, the question proposed is that the bill be read a second time.
Mr. President, standing before us today, the representation of the People's Amendment Bill 2017 is a very simple bill, but it's very significant. Simple because we are seeking to correct some typographical errors that was made at the time the bill was updated. But just by way of background, and I'll go into those areas we are looking to amend today. Just by way of background, the Representation of the People's Act was first enacted in 1993. And for a number of years, we look at 94, 97, 2006, and 2008, the bill was updated. But in 2010, the year 2010, there was a further updating of the bill. And that's where it was captured, Representation of the People Amendment Act, or Cap 286A. What transpired there, Mr. President, was to consolidate all those amendments that were made from 1993 to present time. And in the restructuring and in the amendment that was done in 2010, unfortunately, or inadvertently, a number of errors were made. And today, we seek once and for all to correct those errors and to ensure that the bill before us correctly characterize all the changes made from 1993 to present time. So what we seek to do today, Mr. President, is to amend the second schedule of the Principal Act. And in amending the second schedule, because what we have as what is obtained presently, the second schedule refers to the Representation of the People's Act of 1993. But as I've said a while ago, we have made changes up to 2010. So wherever 1993 is stated in the Act, the amendment here is to bring it up to Representation of the People's Amendment Act, Cap 286A, which will take into consideration the 5 prior amendments. So, for example, Mr. President, in this amendment, a number of forms, oaths that would have to be shared. For example, Representation of the People's Act, oath of official photographer. And you will see in this, it referenced the 1993 legislation, but as I've said, that would have been updated. So where you have 1993, we're asking for Representation of the People's Amendment Act, Cap 286A. And you will see a number of those oaths being reference been made to 1993. And we want to bring that up to date to ensure that it captures Cap 286A. The second amendment we wish to make today, Mr. President, is amendment to the 3rd schedule of the Principal Act. And the first thing we want to capture under the 3rd schedule, wherever 1993 is referenced, to change it to Cap 286A. Also, in the restructuring or the updating, it was done in alphabetical orders. So what we found, Mr. President, a number of forms and the numbering of forms change as a result of the alphabetical restructuring. And as a result, for example, form number 1, by deleting section 33 where they appear and substituting therefore the word section 36, because in the alphabetical restructuring 33 now becomes 36. And if we go through, you'll see the same thing occurring in form number 9, form number 11, form number 12, and form number 24. So the correct reference numbers are listed for each of the forms that we're looking to make the amendments on today. One may ask, well, as I said, it's a simple, very simple amendment because it's just, as I said, it's a typographical error. We want to ensure that the forms are correctly numbered. But one may ask, well, why? If this is not done, Mr. President, one may just try to make some mischief when an election is called. Because the Representation of the People's Act governs the conduct of an election. Prior to the actual election date, what should be done prior to in preparations for the registration of electors and the likes? What should be done on the actual day of election, or the polling day? And what should be done immediately after polling day? So the Representation of the People's Act, Cap 286A, governs that. If for some reason, Mr. President, as I said, I alluded to, someone just wanted to make mischief. So, election is called. And those numbering will not change. A person could cause serious injury to the governance of the election if they should file a motion against using those forms that is incorrectly numbered. To ensure that that does not happen, we are doing what is right today. And as I said, it was done in 2010. That's when the last update was made. And those errors were made. But today, it has been fixed to ensure that whenever the polling date is called, we can conduct, or the Parliamentary Elections Office, the supervisor and his team who will have and they have the responsibility to ensure that they conduct a free and fair election process. They are given the proper tools to effectively and efficiently conduct the business. And for these words, Mr. President, I want to commend the bill for its second reading.
Be to the contrary opinion, say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it.
A bill for an act shortly entitled Representation of the People Amendment Bill 2017.
Senator Winston Garvey.
Mr. President, I beg to move that the Senate resolve itself into a committee of the whole Senate to consider the bill clause by clause.
Honorable members, the question is that the Senate resolves itself into a committee of the whole Senate to consider the bill clause by clause. All those who have that opinion say aye. Aye. To the contrary opinion say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it. Honorable members, the House now sits in committee.
Clause 2, amendment of second schedule to Principal Act.
Honorable members, the question is Clause 2, amendment of second schedule to Principal Act forms part of the bill. Those who have that opinion say aye. To the contrary say nay. I think the ayes have it. The ayes do have it.